Hello everybody, my name is Stephen Piccolo and I am at Brigham Young University, which most people know as BYU. I'm going to talk a little bit about our undergraduate training program in bioinformatics, a little bit about the courses we teach, some of the approaches we take, some of the pedagogy that we use, and also some directions that we want to go in the future. So we do have an undergraduate program in bioinformatics. It's one of the few, I think, around in the United States at least. And we've had a lot of growth over the years, so this is not showing the most recent numbers, but just kind of historically, we started around 2009, I think that was the first official year that we had bioinformatics, and then it's grown over the years. We're now at about 130-ish majors each year, so we've kind of plateaued in our growth, but that's actually been an okay thing for us to be able to help meet the demand of the students that we do have. A little bit of history. So Keith Crandall, who is now at George Washington University, he has a history of doing phylogenetic research, evolutionary biology types of research, and using bioinformatics tools and techniques in that realm. And so that was really the main focus of our program as it was begun way back in that time, but it sort of evolved over the years. When he left the university to go to George Washington University, Keone Kauwe, or John Kauwe, took over the program. He's now at BYU Hawaii as the president of that university. But his research and the rest of us who are currently here in the program focus mostly on human disease research, genetics, genomics, proteomics, that kind of thing. So that's really a little bit more of the focus, at least for the mentored research opportunities that we provide, where our research focuses. We do have a graduate program. It's not in bioinformatics, it's in biology, but students who come through this program can work with one of us as mentors and do bioinformatics-oriented projects. And we've had quite a few who have either had bioinformatics as their main focus or sort of a side topic that they've focused on in part of their research. And talk a little bit about the curriculum that we use for undergraduates. I won't really talk about the graduate courses much in this talk. Okay, so we have science core, so core science classes that you would see at pretty much any university, but introduction to biology that has a lab. We have molecular biology, we have genetics, evolutionary biology, chemistry, and calculus, giving them just a good foundation in science. We also have our students take 5 core computer science courses, and these are the same core courses that the computer science majors take as they enter their program. So we want our students to get a really solid foundation in programming, in software design, a little bit in databases, and then optimizing algorithms and things like that, a little bit of theory as well. One thing that's maybe different about our program from some others is that we have what I feel is a really strong core of courses that are not just having them take courses in computer science and take them in biology, but have courses that combine those two together. And our students have really asked for that, hoped that we would add that into our curriculum. Okay, so I'll talk about each one of these briefly, but right now we have 4 core courses that are specific to bioinformatics. We have a 100 level course, 200, 300, and 400, so that helps them kind of build a cohort with each other and develop these integrated skills throughout the time that they're working on their degree. And it's taken a while for us to get to that point, but now I think we're in a good place with that. Then we have students who can do electives, of course, mentored research, they can get credit for that. Courses in ecology, evolution, population genetics, things like that, genomics, cell biology, physiology. They can take more upper level computer science courses or upper level math or statistics courses if that's what they're interested in. And we have some students who are pre-med or other planning to get another professional degree, and so they may tailor their experience a little bit differently than somebody who's maybe planning to go to industry or go to graduate school and get a PhD. Okay, I want to spend a little time talking about, actually I spent quite a lot of time talking about Introduction to Bioinformatics. This is a 100 level course that students can take as early as their freshman year. And the main learning outcomes that we have is that we want our students to be able to have good competency with just at least with the basics of Linux commands, understand what Linux is as an operating system, how to navigate a command line, work with files, move files, create, edit files, all that kind of thing. manipulate permissions and things like that. We don't really get, in this course, we don't really have time to get into building computational pipelines or workflows, that kind of thing, but just getting them at least somewhat comfortable with Linux commands. Most of the course is focused on Python programming, and I'll talk about that more in a second. And we also want to make sure that they understand, at least at a high level, something about the field of bioinformatics, what it's all about, what careers are out there, what options they have, what they can do with these new skills that they're gaining. These are the 4 units that we teach in the course. So just providing a little bit more detail from the previous slide. You can see that early on we give them, just a foundation in declaring variables, conditional statements, things you might expect in an introductory programming course, and loops and dictionaries and working with files and things like that. And then in the last unit we give them exposure to regular expressions, working with Python scripts, so longer types of coding exercises. And then we give them a little bit of exposure to pandas as an external module that they can use for analyzing tabular data, as well as Seaborn that they can use for creating simple graphs. We don't really go very deep on that. They have an opportunity to learn those skills in more depth later, but we give them at least some foundation or some taste of what they can do with Python beyond just the simple kinds of things. And I just actually finished delivering the final exam for this course. It's a programming exam. And there are a few students who struggle at times, but overall I'm really impressed with how well these students can code, many of whom have never done any coding before this course. And by the end of the course, they're able to do things like simulate transcribing from DNA to RNA and from RNA to proteins, looking at codons and translating that way. Working with VCF files and doing some analysis with those, using fairly complex regular expressions and things like that. So, it's gratifying and encouraging to see them gain those skills and be able to grow as much as they do in one semester. We have, these are virtual now, but we have guest lecturers come in who talk about their research, try to get our students excited about the kinds of things that they can do with these newfound skills in bioinformatics that they're gaining. And this can also be opportunities for faculty members to recruit these undergraduate students who now have some bioinformatics skills into their labs to do mentored research. One thing that's a little bit a really good thing, but sort of different about teaching this course is that we have people from diverse backgrounds as far as educationally, what degree programs they're in. So not only do we have students who are going through our bioinformatics degree program, we also have students who are in the genetics, genomics, and biotechnology program, which is one major, it's just a long name, or the molecular biology program. One outcome of this has been that we've had a lot of students come in and take the course, and a lot of these other degree programs, genetics and molecular biology, they have a higher ratio of female students to male students in those degree programs than we have in the bioinformatics degree program. So one thing that's been really gratifying to see is that as we've offered this course, we've seen an increase in the number of females who have taken the course, not only from those majors where this course is required, but also other majors of just students who are interested in learning about bioinformatics and learning the skills that they can gain. And we've seen a corresponding uptick in the number of females in our bioinformatics program. So we often have people who come in, they take the course, they never thought they would like programming, or they weren't sure, or they didn't know if they would be good at it. They come in, they take the course, they find that they really love it, and then that they want to do bioinformatics for their program. I was just talking to one woman in my course who has done just that, and it's just really exciting to see an avenue for people to learn about programming and statistics and informatics and computer science coming into these STEM fields, I guess, or learning these STEM skills, and there are people who maybe didn't consider that as something that they were likely to enjoy or be good at. Okay, another course that we teach is Statistical Analysis for Biologists. This is a 200 level course. It's available right now for 3 different degree programs. So we do have our bioinformatics students take it, but we also have a general biology degree and then a biodiversity and conservation degree, which is really about evolutionary biology. And so this is, again, a kind of a mix where we have some students who have some experience with programming and others who have not done any programming at all before. In this course, we use the R statistical package, so we teach them fundamental skills in R programming, working with vectors and matrices and if statements and loops and all of those kinds of things in the first unit. In the second unit, we teach them the tidyverse, just as a suite of packages that they can use to work more efficiently with data and make beautiful graphs and things like that. But those first two units are really the foundation for what's the core of the course, which is learning how to analyze data, being able to identify what is the correct statistical test to use. And to do that, many times you have to actually look at the data and analyze it and run statistical tests to even know what the correct inference test is that you might use. And so that's why we teach them those core skills with programming so that they can do that on their own. In the real world, they're not going to be given a data set that's just ready to go much of the time, or that they'll know exactly what tests they should use. They need to check the assumptions of different tests and use code to be able to do that. And then at the end of the course, we teach some basic machine learning, some classification, clustering, dimensionality reduction, those kinds of things, just again to give them a little bit of a taste for what's possible. We use this book, The Analysis of Biological Data. It's a great one. Definitely recommend it. Okay, our 300 level course is Bioinformatics Algorithms. I won't say much about this. This is a well-known book in the community, I think. We've really liked it. Our students have learned a lot from it. And one thing that we've had to try to figure out is just for this, at the undergraduate level, in a single course, what's feasible for us to include in that course, or how many of the chapters should we include, and we're still kind of figuring that out. But and we've changed that a little bit over the years. But again, we've really liked this course just as a way of helping these students learn those core algorithms that are sort of well recognized in the field of bioinformatics. Okay, and then we have a Capstone in Bioinformatics course. So this is an opportunity for students to perform a research project in groups, present on that research, evaluate the research of others, and that kind of thing. And just briefly, I'll show you a few projects that people have worked on over the years. This is one where students looked at genomic aberrations in cancer, and they did a survival analysis trying to understand differences among the groups in survival. We had another competition, a project where it was a competition where we had students work on an algorithm and see which group of students could come up with the most efficient or the fastest algorithm. You can see there's quite a lot of variety in how quick those algorithms were from one student to another. And then we had another one where students worked with images of different kinds of fish and trying to automatically identify the species of fish. And I think this was built off of a Kaggle challenge, but they were trying to implement a new algorithm or a way of doing that was different from what others had done before. We have a new course that we're just offering for the first time this year. We're calling it Computational Cancer Biology. So the idea here is to enable students to examine the altered cellular phenotypes of cancer through a computational exploration of molecular and clinical data, comparing and contrasting different cancer types. So basically a multi-omic analysis course. And this has satisfied a demand starting to satisfy a demand from students, we think, who want more applied types of courses where they can say, okay, we've learned these foundational skills. Now, what are some interesting things that we can do with these skills that we've gained? And, so we have several faculty in the department who have computational cancer biology as their focus of their research. And so it's been an opportunity for us to bring some of that into the classroom to help our students gain some new perspective and skills. We have a course that we anticipate delivering in the future that will be called Machine Learning for Biologists, helping students understand and implement machine learning skills in a biology context. We haven't yet released that course, but hopefully in the next couple of years we'll have that course up and running. Mentored research is a huge focus here at BYU. Our administrators really value that, and we've had really good success with placing our students in PhD programs. I don't know the exact numbers, but I want to say that it's something like 50% at least of students who go through our college end up pursuing a PhD later on. And so mentored research, we think, has been a really valuable part of that. Here's one of my former students who presented at Cold Spring Harbor on some research that he did with cloud computing and genomics and that kind of thing. And just a fantastic experience for him, and then kind of mutually beneficial, where having these great students work on projects helped me to move my research program along as well. Okay, I'm going to talk now a little bit about some of the pedagogical approaches that we use. I'm going to focus mostly on the intro courses, not so much on the upper level courses. So the general approach that we use is, first we want students to learn concepts on their own. That's usually through reading from a book or watching videos, things like that, free online resources that they can go and look at in order to gain the foundations that they need. Then they come to class. We give them a quiz at the beginning of class to evaluate whether they're actually putting in the time to do the reading. And then during class, we try to make them as interactive as possible. So doing things like this, where I'll give them a slide like this and I'll say, okay, here's some simple code that can fit on one slide. I want you to look at this, and based on what you know about Python programming, and in this case about dictionaries, what do you think the output of this code would be? And in this case, we have two different dictionaries that have the same data, but they're in a different order. So it's trying to get them to think, okay, would these two dictionaries be considered equivalent to each other, even though they're in a different order? And so it helps us kind of drive home that idea that dictionaries are not ordered. It's more based on the keys and values that you have in the dictionary, rather than on the order that they're in. We also have examples kind of like this, where during class we'll show them some starter code, and then we'll show them some output that we want them to produce, and then we'll actually have them write pseudocode, and sometimes they get to the point of actual functional code where they could say, okay, what code would I need to do to get from point A to point B? So, and these are not part of homework assignments, they're not graded, it's just active learning, interactive participation, and we've really had a lot of success. Our students have really given us good feedback about the value of doing this kind of thing in class. Then, of course, we'll talk about the solutions and how to deal with that. But really, a key part of this course, and what I think, and I haven't tested this explicitly, but one thing that I think is a real key to our success with these students getting to the level of proficiency that they have by the end of the course is that we force them to do a lot of practice. So we kind of use this analogy of, if you're going to learn how to play the piano, you can read a book all day, but the only way you're really going to learn how to play the piano well is by practicing. And so we do the same thing with them with coding. We've created hundreds of exercises across the different courses that we have, and it's been very time consuming to create those, but I think they've turned out to be a really valuable resource for our students to use in learning how to code. Just one other point on that is that this is actually a point of research from a pedagogical point of view that I want to pursue, is for most of these programming exercises, we've described these or put these in a biology context. And so, rather than them going to a computer science course and, writing code to solve something about business or finance or something like that, not that there's anything wrong with those, but for most of these problems, they're described in a biology context. And I believe that anecdotally at least, I've seen that makes them more motivated, more interested, more able to relate to these programming problems and see, I can use my skills to do something interesting as a biologist, not just as a computer programmer. So I'm interested as a researcher in knowing, can we actually find evidence that putting these problems in a biology context is valuable to do. Okay, and we have a homegrown auto grader, and I'm a little bit nervous to say anything about it just because, everybody, it seems like, has their own auto grader, but this has been a really valuable resource, I think, for our students. It's evolved over the years. This is what it looks like now. But, the idea is we give them a description of what we want them to do. We have them write the code, and then they go and they check and see if their tests pass, maybe as you would expect. So we'll have multiple tests usually for each exercise. We have to make sure that their code works in it's generic enough to work in a variety of contexts, not just letting them print the expected output or whatever. And then one thing that we've added into this that has been, I think, a really valuable thing, and again, I haven't tested this with research yet, but after they solve a problem, we give them a link where they can click on the instructor, or they can click on the link and they can see the instructor's solution. And I've done an informal survey and found that I think it's like 70% of the time students are looking at the instructor's solutions, something like that. Maybe not that high, but a pretty high percentage. I was surprised at how high it was. And the reason we put this in here is because we often had students come to us and say, hey, I solved this problem, but I'm not really sure if I did it in a very efficient way, if there's a better way or whatever. And so we use this as a way for them to learn. And not that there's one correct solution, but they can see a quote-unquote expert solution, and we hope and we think that over time they're learning through that process. Another thing that we're doing is on some of the homework problems, or homework assignments, it's only for about 5 of the exercises throughout the semester so far. We may expand that to more in the future, but we also have an opportunity where they can view anonymized solutions from other students in the course. Okay, and so then they look at, they compare their code against others, and then they do a little write-up, a 2-page write-up, or sometimes longer than that, where they kind of qualitatively evaluate their code versus other students' code. And we've also had really good feedback that that's a valuable thing for them to do. But by having this autograder, it gives us the flexibility of implementing those kinds of things. If anybody's interested in using the autograder, I'd love to talk to you. There's some other features that I think are unique compared to other solutions that are out there. One thing that is unique about it, I think, I've never seen anything out there that does this, is the ability to auto-grade images. So this is an example from one of our assignments in the Statistical Analysis for Biologists course, where we give our students a data set and we ask them to plot the data as a scatter plot and customize it in a few different ways. So in CodeBuddy, I can, that's the name of our software, I can set it up to auto-grade their images, so they have to actually get the image to look exactly like what the instructor's output looks like. One thing that's core to, we've done this in one course, we're going to implement it in another one later, is pair programming. In the computer science education literature, there's a lot of evidence that pair programming is a valuable task for students to go through. So at least in the one course where we've implemented, we use a flipped model where they watch the lectures outside of class, and then during class they're solely working on pair programming. So they're working through assignments. In CodeBuddy, we can say such and such exercises should be, you should work on those in pairs. And so the idea there is that you can learn from each other and help each other overcome misunderstandings that you might have and be more efficient as well in the learning process. And then we leave some of the exercises as designated not to be for pair programming in the hopes that they will not be too dependent on a partner, but they'll be able to show that they can gain experience working on coding themselves and hopefully solidify some of those concepts and skills that they've learned. We do have our exams are also mostly, or several of them are programming based. So we want our students to be able to not only learn how to code, but demonstrate that they have reached a certain level of proficiency in their coding through exams. And we use this autograder as well for those exams. We're working towards pedagogical research on some of the approaches that we use. We'd love to collaborate with people in whatever way that might be. So feel free to reach out if you think that you would be interested in talking to us. You can talk to me specifically or anybody else that you might know. Just a few final comments. So some successes. We feel like we've received positive feedback and strong demand from students for our courses and just in general for the program. Colleagues in other departments and in our own department tend to appreciate the skills that students are learning in our courses. We've seen consistent placement of students in high quality graduate and professional schools and in industry. Some challenges, just keeping pace with demand, keeping up to date with the latest and greatest things to keep students interested, keeping up with the number of students, balancing breadth versus depth. We have a broad curriculum, but there are some pros and cons to that. Mostly I think it's good, but there are some challenges with getting the right level of depth as well. And then we have a lot of students. We only have 4 faculty right now in bioinformatics, so trying to make sure that we supply quantity and diversity of mentoring experiences for our students. That's also an ongoing challenge that we're working on. We'd love to receive feedback from any of you on what we can do to prepare our students for graduate school and industry better. If you have any insights based on this presentation or anything else, we'd love to hear that, so please reach out. Here's my contact information. I'm on Twitter. There's my email, or you can go to my website. Thanks for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.